As we enter the month of February, it was only fitting that Westdale Public School hosted Michael Toby, a trained opera singer whose show shared stories, songs, and history about the Underground Railroad.
What the show does, it celebrates Canada's role on the Underground Railroad. So what we can expect today, it's, I guess, a few things. They'll be singing, they'll be speaking, there'll be video. Try to mix it up so I can hold the students' interest. And one of the key things is that the students usually haven't heard an opera singer before. So when I start singing without a microphone and they hear my voice in the gym, they look at me like I'm an alien, and once I have their attention, well, then we go from there.
Why do you believe it's important for students to understand and have knowledge of the history of the Underground Railroad?
Because this is a feel-good story. Usually in a country, there are periods that are of history that we love to look back on, periods of history that we'd rather forget. But this is a feel-good story because a lot of people don't realize that Canada played a very important role on the Underground Railroad. While our neighbors to the south were passing these draconian laws denying people freedom, we were welcoming people. And so life wasn't perfect here, but at least here they could have a life. And so I think it's important because it's important we know our history, but it's really, especially we know the good points as well of our history.
Can you talk about why you feel it's important for Westdale students to hear Michael Toby's presentation today?
This area is really significant as far as the Underground Railroad was concerned. It was sort of the ending point. And I don't know, if our kids really knew that, and I wanted to make sure that they got that story. Michael's really unique. He sings songs that were actually songs that were sung by the slaves as they were heading north, and they used those songs to communicate with each other.
One night I came to see her, but she's gone to Niagara's hay. White man came, and he bound her with his chain.
Can you talk about the significance of the show and you performing it here in the Niagara region in St. Catharines?
Well, it's wonderful. One of the first concerts I did when I started doing this was at the museum on Locke Street. And of course, they had a wonderful display. I remember speaking to the curator and learning all sorts of neat information, going to the museum there and then in Niagara Falls. And so it's very significant because it's amazing how people can live somewhere and not know their own history. And so St. Catharines is a hotbed for history. And so people realize this. There are probably students that are sitting there here that will learn these things and, wow, I didn't realize that this happened or took place right where I live.
What do you think educators can do to keep the history of the Underground Railroad alive?
There's lots of ways to do that. We have novel studies, and in fact there are quite a few that the students do over the years. Just this week, for instance, knowing that Michael was coming, we had a lot of little mini lessons on the Underground Railroad, and it was great being in the classrooms and seeing the kids getting involved in that.
One of the things Michael Toby wants students to take away from his presentation today is the connection between how slaves were treated and bullying.
Well, one of the things that I try to do is I relate it to bullying because invariably the students would ask, why were slaves only black? And so I point out that when you pick on people because they look different, their skin color is different, they have a different religion, you think you're better than they are, they see the connection between bullying and the slave master. And so I try to drive the point across that we need to be inclusive, because when we're not and we pick on people and we ostracize people and push them out, then you're repeating itself. And I point out that that's why we make such a big deal about bullying, because this was bullying unchecked.
You just saw Michael Toby's performance. What did you think of it?
I thought that it was a great and very inspiring performance.
Did you learn something new today?
It really just empowered the big fact of how we should be honoring Harriet Tubman and how tragic it is that they used slaves and how great it is that it ended in St. Catharines.
Between 1840 and 1860, enslaved Africans followed the North Star on the Underground Railroad to find freedom in Canada. Thanks to Michael Toby's performance, students at Westdale Public School learned the importance the Underground Railroad had in rescuing many people from slavery. In St. Catharines, reporting for The Source, I'm Jennifer Widdick.